All right, what's going on, everybody? We are live. As per usual, going to be doing the typical 15-second to 30-second juggle as I tweet out the live link. And we'll get going with the topics that I tweeted at Dan Tom MMA. Of course, Dan Tom. You can find my work over at MMAJunkie.com, the analyst there. Also, the host of the Protect Your Neck podcast, where these live MMA chats are essentially going to go to after I'm done here. You'll just get a kind of a slightly more produced version, but it'll be the same thing. This, of course, here on YouTube, where you could subscribe to my channel. You can actually participate live and get things going. We're having people pile into the chat. Thank you. As I get this tweet out, and we'll be underway. Cool. All right. Powerful. Hopefully you guys are holding up pretty well. Was able to get somewhat of a workout, more of a light stretch and light body weight thing, if anything, not too much, but we're doing what we can. It's funny. I'm like seeing kettlebells that are sold out like everywhere. So hopefully like all you home gymmers, like your time is now, you're all thriving. So that's pretty cool. I'm more used to the social distancing side, sadly. So that hasn't been too much of a problem. Been pretty busy lately. I actually have some new lights for the studio that, of course, aren't active here, but I'm going to have them up for next chat, as well as hopefully be shooting it off my phone. I just honestly haven't had time to. I've not had time to essentially sit down and work some things out. Basically, just deciding what I'm going to use. Some of you reached out and offered help. I'll definitely be hitting you guys up if I do need that, and I appreciate it regardless. So thank you guys. All right, today we're going to be talking about Khabib's and pretty much Tony's too. He did an interview with Ariel Helwani over there at ESPN, basically like their statements on the status of UFC 249. You guys already know my stance on the card and stance of many other people, just pretty much trying to be more logical about this. And even though we really would love it to happen, probably not obviously the smartest thing to have a fight event right now. So we'll talk about that and / what I think the UFC's next card will be. I'm actually going to pitch a theory for what I think is going to happen, for whatever that's worth. So we're going to cover that. Also, plugged MMAJunkie.com. Posted article. Yeah, today, this morning of this chat, it came out 7 fighters to survive the apocalypse with. I'll briefly give those here. And if you didn't already comment on the article or get at me on Twitter at Dan Tom MMA, you can go ahead and plug anytime throughout this chat. I'll shout you out. Go ahead and shoot the 7 fighters you would want on your, apocalypse survival team, if you will. So feel free to do that. Throw whatever questions you want in there. No rules. The lunatics run the asylum on this show as my podcast. So y'all know how that goes. Going to give a sneak peek to some projects that I've been thinking about, which may actually just turn into shouts for other people's projects, and I'll explain why when we get there. And yeah, of course, our weekly focus. I don't blame people if they didn't quite get it. Twitter only allows you so many characters, but I essentially put BJJ/boxing, judo/boxer versus BJJ/Muay Thai. And we're going to essentially talk styles matchups, eras of MMA, where that style matchup in particular, that's going to be our weekly focus. And I'm going to give you guys, so I'm not rambling on, of course, I'll be limiting these chats in total for roughly a half hour. I've been pretty good about that. And I will be giving you some fights to watch regarding this focus topic. So apologies if you hear some dogs in the background. We're all doing the best we can here. And like I said, unfortunately, I've been busy. I'm almost envious of y'all who are like, I'm bored during the self-quarantine time. Like, I barely finished Tiger King last night, and it took me it's only like a week to finish an episode and a half, the last 2 episodes. So yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to be talking about Tiger King or giving you any spoilers, but that'll be our weekly focus. The styles matchups going to give you guys some matchups to watch in regards to that. And our weekly recs are going to be quarantine recipes. Essentially, I'm going to give you some like really generic ass recipes that I grew up with and that I'm putting back into a play, especially now. And you guys can shoot yours in the chat too. If you want to shoot me some like cheap recipes that, we're probably going to have to be leaning on during this time. And then we'll get on out of here. All right. So essentially, starting with the top, Khabib statement. It's pretty darn rational when you go through and read it. Khabib essentially is talking about the bigger picture in regards to this epidemic as opposed to just a fight. Um, we all know he's a man of moral stance, and regardless if you agree with his moral stances or not, he has more of the luxury because of as well as finances as well to take his own version of the moral high ground. In this case, I got to agree with him. He makes a lot of sense. He's very rational. Um, and I really appreciate that. We always talk about whether it comes to big things like fighter unions or things that maybe the upper management or brass are a bit more tone deaf on purposely or not. Too, we need the bigger names to kind of step up to the plate, and even if it's an unpopular opinion or an unpopular stance, they have to do that. So props to Khabib there. Now, obviously, you guys know I'm a big Tony Ferguson mark. Big fan of him as a fighter. But man, that doesn't mean I always agree with him though. He had some, what was it? The press conference or whatever. He had that media altercation with my buddy Rodney James Edgar. Shouts to Rodney, by the way. Good dude. Served this country, the United States, and works within the media space. Right. He's also fought and whatnot, and he was just trying to give a basic softball. And coming from an experienced guy who loves Tony Ferguson and maybe next to shouts to Sean El-Shadi, who does awesome work over there at The Athletic. Next to him, I think me and him are probably the loudest supporters as far as Tony Ferguson goes. And I pitched him a softball too, totally unrelated to the mental health stuff, just like to his win over Kevin Lee at the time. And he totally took it the wrong way and just, I don't know what question he heard. That's just Tony. I don't take it personal. I'm still a fan of breaking, his fights down. But again, that doesn't mean I have to agree with them. And even though I don't agree with him, something I talk about on this, chats a lot, like just because I don't agree doesn't mean I don't understand. Do understand where he's coming from. He, I forget who it was on Twitter. I think it was Chris Deep. He goes by. Shouts to him. I know he listens to this program, but he tweeted something just kind of, essentially a reminder of who got to the title first. And then regardless of who pulled out and they exchanged pullouts or whatever, that sounds really terrible. They exchanged pullouts. This is not that kind of a show, folks. I promise you. They ended up fighting on the same card at UFC 229, I want to say, right? Where Khabib fought Conor and Tony, of course, fought Anthony Pettis. And that was kind of just like a slap in the face, to Tony, the uncrowned champ. So if he's bitter and wants to accuse someone of pulling out or being scared, he's the opposing fighter. Like, that's fine. I think the problem that, I and many have is when the fans get they're right to their opinions. I'm not trying to sway anybody from their opinions. I'm not trying to tell you who to like, who to dislike, but when the fans start going, hey, this guy's scared and da-da-da-da, and it just sucks. It gives all us MMA fans a bad look in that case. So Khabib, I don't think he's scared, folks. I just think he's being pretty rational, So we'll see what happens. I was a bit surprised that Tony seemed pretty open to fighting Gaethje / another opponent. Don't get me wrong, that fight's awesome, but it's just crappy because we're going to see it, and neither guy will be at their best. Tony on paper will be better than prepared than Justin would be, I would guess. However, I think I've said this before. I think Justin Gaethje, and if Poirier were to beat Khabib, Poirier, although Poirier is still like on a top 5 list as far as most dangerous matchups at lightweight for Tony. On the top of that list, in my opinion, is Justin Gaethje. I think it's a bad matchup for Tony. One of the only other guys that really uses that Granby role, and he's really hard to hold down or really even tie up in a front headlock. I know Eddie Alvarez was able to kind of at least get like kind of a half-ass plum or Irish collar. I don't mean that half-ass like a diss or anything. It's just they were tired. It was the 3rd round, but it was enough to direct the knee that he was, I think he was honing in on already in that UFC 218 fight. Awesome fight, Gaethje versus Alvarez there. Speaking of Eddie Alvarez, I wanted to do like, we always talk about team violence, or everybody has their own version of team violence. I essentially was pondering around a series where I wanted to focus on these guys. Alvarez would be one of them. Another one would be Igor Vovchanchyn. You guys know I've been a big Igor guy, even back when I worked for Flow Combat. And I did, which I'll be citing in our weekly focus when we talk about judo. I did kind of like a Cuban judo retrospective. People seem to dig the kind of deep dives as far as people's backgrounds or fighter highlights or whatnot. And I got a lot of requests for Igor Vovchanchyn, and that's yes, Mark Andre. What's up? What's up? What's up, brother? My brother from Canada over there. And Ben, I'm here for Vovchanchyn love. That's right. And you know where you can get some Vovchanchyn love. Let me redirect a shout out here. And great minds think alike. But the fight site, shout out to the fightsite.com over there. You can follow them on Twitter. I think if you spell it out the same way. But I believe one of the fine workers, fine analysts there did something on Igor. So I haven't checked it out. I haven't had time. And to be honest, it's funny. Like I was even talking to shouts to my dude Aaron Bronstetter, who did a recent top 5 with me. Like I haven't been able to catch up on whether anyone's content, even people that I normally am really up to date on. It's been kind of crazy. That, and also I try to stay awake because I don't want certain ideas to bleed. Like for example, the 7 Fighters Apocalypse article. Shouts to my dude Benny Abs over there. I was actually originally going to set out to do just like fighters to self-quarantine with, and I've started writing it, and I'm like, dude, like this article has to have been written already, and I was late with all the chaos happening in my own life, so I was already behind, so like, let me Google it, and shouts to my dude Benny Abs over there. I believe it's Fansided, where he has that article. So I'm just giving shouts all over the place. I'm like Oprah. I got a cheese grater. I'm just dishing them out like, I'm at a strip club over here. Geez, Dan, what is that reference? I don't know. Forget it. But yeah, But yeah, Igor Vovchanchyn is someone I would be on my all violence team. And I already just shouted. And then shoot, I wrote Benny the Jet Arquides. I saw someone doing some Benny the Jet thing. I was just like scrolling through Twitter. I'm like, geez, I really got to get on these ideas. Otherwise, they're going to get sucked up. But I essentially want to do, I don't know if it's going to be a watch along, an article, a podcast, or what. But I want to break down one of my favorite fights of all time that got me into martial arts, which was, I believe, I saw a replay when I was a kid because I think this fight's like in 78 or 1980, but it was Benny the Jet Arquides in Japan, and he fought Eddie Aikau, and it's just an awesome fight. It is awesome. It's Benny the Jet. He's got the kickboxing pants and the gloves, and there's Benny Abs. All right, I didn't know the last name. See, I'm so used to everybody's Twitter personas, but and I apologize if I mispronounce your last name there, Benny. But shouts. But yeah, like Benny the Jet, he had like the kickboxing pants on, and Eddie Aikau. I mean, this guy was just like a hardened Japanese boxer. There's some awesome left hooks. There's some spin kicks. Like you get a little bit of everything. It's a fight that actually ages really well, even by today's standards. So I'm going to be throwing something at you guys there. So, all right, we covered Khabib's statement, covered the 7 Fighter Apocalypse article. You guys can go check that on your own or shoot yours in the chat. As far as UFC 249, I already gave my thoughts on that and thoughts on why I feel that it's just kind of irresponsible and doesn't make sense to throw a fight card, as much as I would love to see the UFC back doing what they do best and to doing more of my job and having more job security. And believe me, folks, like I'm all about that. But the world we live in is changing, and we gotta stay up to date as best we can. But here's my theory as far as the next card, what I think they're going to do. We've already heard Dana White essentially talk about waiting for the UFC Apex to reopen. The Nevada State Commission, of course, they were supposed to have their meeting or re-adjourn of their meeting on the 25th. That got pushed back due to coronavirus concerns. Ironically, that's what the meeting was about. So as soon as they get that settled here, I think the Apex is going to be back up. And we heard Dana White essentially talk about pairing up these cards and maybe doing them all one week. You guys remember when we were at the peak when UFC was really just polishing off their product to make that WME sale, and we were seeing the double fight cards, the double time zone cards, and even at certain points like a triple fight card. We had that super summer stretch. I think they're going to essentially do that with probably 3 fight cards to start, at least just for 1 week. I couldn't see them overloading more and kind of just getting or maybe they do overload more and then just getting it there. I mean, we're hearing reports of the NBA talking about using Las Vegas for a similar thing, kind of getting all their fighters in there and incubated in the same, testing them, weeding out, hopefully they'll have triages and all the medical staff, all the things they need, places to put these people if they do come up. But essentially running an in-house, I guess pre-taped, I don't know the details, but you get the picture. They're bringing everybody into one place and they're going to load up and try to protect and roll out product as best they can under these circumstances. Now, once we get to a place where that's deemed legal, safe by the CDC, all that stuff, I'm cool with that. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, much less my own. Again, selfishly, I'm with that, folks. So what I think is that the UFC is going to be doing that over the Apex. And if you guys can, and honestly, you know, I'm not going to get into the plugs and things you can do to support it, because the easiest thing you can do to support outside of subscribe or the 5-star ratings and reviews on iTunes is just sharing the program. So yeah, we are 15 minutes in, and all right, that's my theory for that. I don't think I actually listed my 7 fighters for the Apocalypse. Essentially, I went with Frank Mir for weapons, because he's a weapons freak. I know I got a lot of Tim Kennedys, but like I felt like it was almost easy to pick Tim Kennedy because he actually goes around and teaches survival like skill courses, how to have your own weapons pack. You know, whether it's in the back of your vehicle or to prepping your home. So he kind of already does. I feel like it would have been cheating to do Tim Kennedy. Marty McFlay, how's it? Brada Dan Tom, what's up, Marty? And probably Martin Stabilo, I'm guessing, from Hawaii. That's going to be my guess for that. See, it's like a guessing game. But so I chose Frank for that because, like, kind of like, I don't know if it was Brendan Schaub or Joe Rogan. Like, Frank Mir could fall down a flight of stairs and it would just set off like a firework of gun shows. So, you know, that's kind of a guy you want on your team. But like I said, you got to be able to hunt and use those weapons. Now, this guy's more of a bow guy than a gun guy. But again, shouts to my dude Benny Abs there for his article. I believe he had Jim Miller. Jim Miller is one of his people on there, so I didn't want to steal that. Although you all know I'm a big Jim Miller fan, so Jim Miller probably would have made the team. But I'm a big Corey Overtime Anderson fan, so you know I know you don't want, you know, the work ethic could be a bit of a turnoff, but you know you know you just set Corey with his, you know, his dog and his big red truck. He's going to get you some food in return. I think I had of course there's going to be some bias in there, so like I had like Emily Whitmire, but then again, you know, she can, like, you know, brew her own kombucha and like ride horses and go out into the wilderness and make sense of that stuff. So it's like, you want someone like that on your team, right? Or Julian Marquez, who I've worked with before. He's a really quality dude. And so I threw him on there. Some other people, you know, Charles Rosa. Benny says Jim Miller with the hunting. And oh my goodness, my screen is terrible. There we go. Jim Miller with the hunting and grilling is necessary. Yeah, like Jim Miller's Instagram. You guys know when I break down fights on the Protect Connect podcast, I tend to go to fighters' social medias too. I like to see what they're eating and then, like, you know, see if they're eating healthy. And then I go to Jim Miller's and I just get hungry. He's just like beer basted, cooked in duck fat, like just like crazy. Like I'm like, God damn, Jim. And it's all stuff like he catches and cooks himself. So like you really can't hate on it. And as you can tell, your dude appreciates some food here. No secret there. Yep, Marty McFly also says Tim Kennedy easy pick. It's great. You know, I'm not hating a Tim Kennedy pick. It felt too easy. The guy had some GSP and Brian Stan, but go read the article. There's a lot of little Easter egg stuff, a lot of links, and little videos I did inserted in there. Appreciate y'all supporting who support the media or support articles that you like during this time. Like I always said, vote with your dollars. There's always that argument. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Oh, the media just wants to talk about Conor, where the media, and I'm part of it, and I've seen the analytics. Well, y'all are clicking on those stories, and there's this weird, the truth is in between, right? But the point is, we could argue about that point all day. The overarching, I feel, point is vote with your dollars, click on what you like. And in this current COVID-19 kind of a time we're in, it feels like the one like evergreen meme is the Spider-Man pointing at each other, like blame the media, blame this political leader, you know, Trump, or, you know, whatever. Like that seems to sadly be the evergreen thing. But boy, Dan, where the hell were you going with that? I am definitely not trying to get political here, folks. I guess I'm just that's me. Yep, that is me. Okay, I got that right on Martin Sevilla. Yeah, definitely not trying to be political here, folks. Just saying, instead of playing the blame game, I forget what I was going to say. Don't get punched in the head. That's a good one too. Co-host / mystery science theater talk. Yeah, I've been doing guest co-hosts for the top 5 shows. I got Simon Head coming on. We're going to be doing this Justin. We're going to be doing top 5 light heavyweight fights. So I don't officially post it the day before we record. But just a heads up for you guys, that's the topic we're going to be covering. Those are great. I'm going to keep doing those and mailing those out. But I do want to do like, watch alongs, but I'm just not sure the angle I want to do. I know people are picking like fun cards. And when you do that, that's great. But I notice everybody tends to kind of pick the same cards, which is great. I'm not hating. There's a lot of great cards to pick from. That's the great thing about our sport. But like I've said before, I kind of want to do something more because, I'm a completist. Not so far as going to Pancrase, but doing Pride as well as UFC and going from start to finish and doing a series there. But finding a good co-host for that is difficult. And even though I didn't want to do it through Skype, we're in the era that this is kind of what we're going to have to work with. So I do want to launch those, and that will be, I'm sure, free as well as all the content. Sorry, weekly focus: judo boxer versus BJJ Muay Thai. 10 minutes left before we're done here. Basically, there was a lot of styles back in the day, and I believe Strikeforce did this, and some other places, Elite XC, I'm pretty sure did this, where they would do styles and they would let you pick something. Sometimes the guy would just have freestyle. Remember that, folks? Or they would have wrestling and boxing. And speaking of wrestling and boxing, that's why I thought of this focus, is because we talked about 5 lightweight fights worth revisiting. One of mine was Tetsuya Kawajiri versus Eddie Alvarez. Now, they were kind of 2 different type of iteration of wrestle boxers for what their region had to offer, right? We had Eddie Alvarez, American wrestling, East Coast boxing, whereas Tetsuya Kawajiri, Japanese wrestling / more judo style of things, as far as that base. And that heavy base, of course, relied to heavy hands. And Tetsuya Kawajiri, granted, he went through heavy wrestling stretches. People that followed his career from start to finish, he's not afraid to throw his hands when he needed to. So those were just kind of great. Wrestle boxers always make for fun fights, and that kind of goes through different eras and iterations. However, especially when organizations like the WEC were around, which are going to be 2 samples I'm going to give you here. Now, probably won't surprise you if you are a normal listener of the Protect Your Neck podcast, but judo boxers versus BJJ Muay Thai. So someone that would be BJJ Muay Thai, for example, would have been Carlos Condit. Carlos Condit, right? He did the art of 8 limbs: elbows, knees, kicks, punches. But when he went to the ground, as he would surprise people, what was it? What was it, that tournament? Was it the Rumble in the Rocks where he caught Frank Trigg with the triangle? That's kind of like where Carlos Condit really started, his name started popping on the scene. That's where I know I started tracking him from that time on. Once he hit the WEC scene, he got the welterweight title. The pound for pound rankings in the WEC. He was a bantamweight in a time where bantamweights weren't getting the love. It certainly, it wasn't as vocally stacked, or not vocally stacked. It wasn't as popularized. It was arguably stacked for at the time it was. I mean, granted, you might look back now and you might not be like, who's this Antonio Benuelos guy? Like, okay, I get it, but it was still a fun bantamweight division is what I'm trying to say. Just wasn't as popular as today's bantamweight division, which is stacked. With a bunch of heavy hitters, and it's a good time, right? But Miguel Angel Torres, he was another guy that had really good jiu-jitsu on the ground, but used a lot of Muay Thai. Now, the reason why that's not a coincidence is because if you were a Muay Thai guy, again, we had some white dude from Albuquerque and a Mexican dude from Chicago. Those aren't any kind of stereotypes as far as dudes who grew up in Thailand or this or that. They probably gravitated toward Muay Thai for striking because Muay Thai, it's awesome, but these are pretty creative cats. They like that leg dexterity. That's what comes natural to them. So if they gravitated toward Muay Thai, they're going to probably have a bit of leg dexterity, like I just said. So as far as grappling goes, are they going to be more wrestlers? Probably not, right? In fact, if you're kicking, you're probably going to be taking down more than being the one who can be doing the takedowns. Hence why you hear old school commentary, Rogan, so forth, going, it's okay, he kicks a lot because he's got a great guard, Mike, so it's okay that he kicks a lot. These things were pretty congruent, or they were pretty what's the word I'm looking for? They were pretty symbiotic, these styles, right? They worked and played well off of each other, and were probably connected to inherently who the fighters were by nature. Whereas judo boxer is not too far off the variation of a wrestle boxer, right? You are aware of your base, so you're probably not going to be throwing a lot of spinning stuff, although Kawajiri is not beyond throwing spinning back fists. Not what I'm saying, but just in general, right? You're going to be more of a planted style. And whether you're shooting or whether you're ready for people to shoot, reverse, hip toss them, or whatever whatever your weapon of choice was there as a judo player going into MMA, you were going to be very aware of your base. So naturally, you were going to be already sitting into your punches, and your punches were going to be more available from a leverage standpoint. You would be uprooting away from your base and uprooting away from your preferred leverage if you were to kick. So it's not like these people could not kick; they could. Even Eddie Alvarez, you'll see him you'll see him throw a decent amount of leg kicks against Kawajiri early on in his career, but uh, again, these styles are kind of symbiotic with one another. And what I love about the judo boxer versus the BJJ versus Muay Thai, again, we're tying this together here for our weekly focus, is when they got together, it just made a special type of matchup. Judo and jiu-jitsu, has a long-standing rivalry and rooting from all the way going back from Japan and, the samurai days when they were deciding what type of martial arts disciplines, which of course the samurai drew from a couple different ones, right? But of course, jiu-jitsu spawned from judo, and it became, into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, not until this guy named Mitsuya Maeda made it over to Brazil. However, before Mitsuya Maeda made it over to Brazil, he actually stopped over in places like Cuba. Again, back to that Flow article I referenced, going deep into like Cuban judo, we see guys like Hector Lombard. Again, what does Hector Lombard do? Can he kick? Sure. He's got those mean shin pads tattooed on his shins, but really he was a boxer, but he could grapple too, because he was more, of a newaza. There's three subsections of judo. Newaza is the ground fighting portion, which became less popularized as judo became more of a sport. You only have a couple seconds to attack, which is why Rousey was such a quick attack artist with the armbar, because in judo you only have so long. As far as traditional different styles of judo, like what came over through Cuba, through Mitsuya Maeda, another Japanese gentleman, which I don't have the name of, I apologize, who spent a lot of time there in the early 1900s. They have more of a grappling savvy style. So you'll see some judo guys, especially in MMA, they're trying to keep it off the ground. Whereas guys like Lombard, he could swim with the sharks, right? He was one of the sharks. Sorry, on the live chat here, Ben. Always thought the athleticism of judo translated really well to punching power. Yep, I completely second that. That's a much more simpler and more effective way than my rambling ass just put it, but I completely agree, Ben. He also says hard to think of a judo guy that was ever a soft puncher. What's another basic commentary? And I don't mean basic commentary like knocking it at all, because these are true facts. But what do they all say about the judo guys? Even Rogan, who like usually can't get away from dudes' thighs and calves, he's like, look at the back. Look at Akiyama's back. Look at Lombard's back, because it's true. It's exactly what Rogan says. It's years and years of manipulating bodies, and that translates to strengths in other ways. So you have the judo and BJJ dynamic and how that battles, right? Interesting. What's even more interesting is the boxing versus Muay Thai, because again, even separate from the theme, we can really slice this theme, and we can take piece A to piece B and really just have examples. This is, again, really weird the way I put it on Twitter, because I can't really explain it, but this is a really ripe topic, because boxing versus Muay Thai alone makes for an exciting matchup that we've seen played out back and forth in MMA, right? Nate Diaz versus Donald Cerrone. We saw that, yes, on paper, well, Muay Thai should win. It's more weapons. It's the art of 8 limbs versus boxing. And not only that, if you want to get technical, boxing, yes, it's the sweet science. You can slip, but you can keep those slips in line with high head kicks to kind of dissuade head movement, as Pat Miletich would teach back in the day, or stress to fighters. So you're like, okay, Muay Thai should win. But we saw Diaz use straight lines, boxing fundamentals, and just spamming down that center line, through the Muay Thai guard and through the Muay Thai offensive arsenal. But we've also seen, by the same token of a Cowboy Cerrone, again, to another excellent boxer in MMA, Eddie Alvarez, we've seen what the leg kicks can do, where the boxer maybe can get off to that good start, but if he can't keep it going, if he can't keep that rhythm going like a Nate Diaz can, we will see that leg kicks be extra vulnerable for, again, a very common thing noted in commentary, but it is correct. Most people throw a lot of heavy weight on that front leg when they're boxing. Depends, not everybody. I was taught by some instructors to really, depending on what your power side is, for me, is a southpaw, so I'm sitting back into my left hip, and was taught to try to keep that weight down onto that hip, shooting down through the foot, light on the balls of your toes. Everybody's got kind of different styles on that, but MMA, you do have to be lower to the ground. So again, it dissects a lot of different ways, but when you really see the judo boxer versus BJJ Muay Thai, I'll leave you guys with this and we'll get out of here. Which is the two WEC fights, pretty much Hiro Mitsumura versus Carlos Condit. It's an excellent title fight in WEC. Carlos Condit's defending his title. And we really see just all these, all the iterations from the grappling, the takedowns and tosses. We see the boxer, kind of overwhelmed. The Muay Thai guy come back. So the judo boxer is like, oh, I'm getting overwhelmed on the feet. Let's go to my judo in the clinch. I could punch in the clinch. But then the Muay Thai guy starts throwing knees in the clinch. So then the judo guy has to adjust yet again and does a big takedown. But now he's in the jiu-jitsu guy's world. And you see how these styles play off each other in a left to right, a back and forth kind of way. One of my other favorite fights as well is Miguel Torre ones, but he lost the majority of those, and this was kind of the high point of him. And again, Miguel Torres, he didn't have much time left on the top if you look at his career trajectory as well. But go to Fight Pass and look at that one again. It's just an awesome fight. You're seeing the judo versus jiu-jitsu. You're seeing the Muay Thai versus the boxing. It's freaking amazing. Weekly Rex quarantine recipes. I'm gonna leave you guys with two. Canned tuna. It's great protein. Tuna is really healthy for you. It's got the essential fats and all that stuff. Whether you're, eating the cheaper stuff that I grew up on StarKist, or you get the more expensive stuff from the old Whole Foods or whatever, it really doesn't matter. It's kind of how you dress it up. I'm not an onion guy. I'm not a relish guy. So if you're looking for that kind of tuna recipe, you came to the wrong place. I am the mayonnaise guy, and I know it's going to make half of you go, ugh, and the other half of you go, that's awesome, but I'm not going to admit it out loud because I don't want to seem like a pig. That's fine. You don't have to use mayonnaise. In fact, a great alternative is Vegenaise. I know tuna is not vegan. However, Vegenaise actually does a really good job as far as if you're a mayonnaise fan, you want a healthy alternative. But I'll do the Vegenaise with grapeseed oil. You're not getting just more nutrition over there. Grapeseed oil has some important stuff that's hard to get. But it really doesn't really interfere with the flavor profile. As far as greens, I throw about a handful of parsley in the smoothies every morning. If I have the parsley, it's a little harder to come by, but I will use some of that same parsley, and I will chop some of that parsley up with some spinach into the tuna. And again, parsley, spinach can go into the smoothie. Spaghetti sauce is another cheap spaghetti. I'm sure we're eating a lot of spaghetti, right? How do you kind of, up the nutrients of something really basic? Cut some fresh parsley and spinach in there. I know, an unhealthy looking dude. Who am I to give nutrition? I'm just saying. Cheap stuff to kind of get a little bit of tuna with Miracle Whip. Billy 24/7 was a staple back in the day. You know what's up, Billy? I was never a Miracle Whip fan, but there's no judgment here. Lunatics run the asylum, and there's no judgment here. And again, this will make it go a little faster, but it makes it a little healthier. If you got some avocados to get rid of, just chop some avocados in there. And you can, whether it's like, you dip like a healthy, like gluten-free crackers, make a sandwich, make a gluten-free sandwich, or just eat it straight out of the bowl. You just have kind of a tuna there you can use for different things. Another one I'm going to bring back because I just I got some ground beef from my stepdad, and I don't know where he got it from. It looks sketchy as crap, but the only thing it's good for is SOS, which stands for shit on a shingle. And y'all know what SOS is there? Feel free to hit me in the chat. I was told from my grandfather, that's what they served him in the military. Rest in peace. My grandfather passed earlier this week. But anyways, essentially it's like ground beef, cream of mushroom soup in a can, and you mix that together and you put it on toast, and that's it. You cooked ground beef and cream of mushroom soup, you mix it together and you put it on toast, and they call it shit on the shingle because, well, what it looks like. And a shingle isn't a roof shingle, which I guess is what their analogy is for the toast. So it's a cheap food and cheap times. I'm probably going to try to do a healthier toast. I'm probably going to try to just chop some spinach in there so I feel less bad about it. But some cheap things. I know it's terrible, but chipped beef on toast, Billy 24/7 says. Marty McFly, you guys, I'm hoping things are going to get better. I'm an optimist here, folks. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but just enjoy enjoy the pleasantries you got, and look out for each other. Make sure you subscribe to the channel or follow the podcast. Subscribe on iTunes, the Protect Your Neck podcast. I have links to all that if it makes it easier at Dan Tom MMA on Twitter, where you can find the website that hosts all this, including the podcast, mixedmartialanalyst.com, for your click-through Amazon links, On It links. I know we're all using those at this time. You click through, doesn't cost you anything, just takes a small percentage of your sale, kicks it back to this here shit show, and we can continue to keep these going, keep entertainment rolling. I hope you guys enjoyed the top fives. More top fives coming your way next week. More content on this channel and more. Thank y'all, and until next time, protect your neck.